welcome to TiElogues Q&A. And today is a funding special. To tell our viewers, TiElogue Q&A is where we invite queries from our members and get an expert in the house to answer them from you. And today the expert in the house is Ojasvi Babbar. Welcome, Ojasvi, and I'll dive straight into the questions. A member has asked that our company is still at the pre-revenue stage and is seeking seed funding at the moment. Looking to raise some funding at early stage seed level funding. What would you suggest we should work on in the most? Where should the focus be in order to secure that bag?
First and foremost, in case they're looking to raise any seed rounds, we'd be more than happy to evaluate and help them out.
Great,
But
great.
generically,
That is
I would
what
suggest that
guys want.
if they're looking at early stage seed funding, they would have to ensure that when they are presenting to the investors, their investment and pitch deck is completely ready. The team is completely committed and on the same ground. And along with that, they have compelling proposition, since you just mentioned that that's a pre-revenue stage, so that they have to make sure that they have a compelling proposition which makes sure that or gives an assurance to the investor that the future revenues are bound to come, and the gestation period or the period through which they would stay pre-revenue, they would only be working on traction or growth or the development of the product as such. So the investor has to be convinced of the fact that there is an actual product market fit, there is an actual need for the particular product, and there are clients which are willing, or customers which are willing to take their product. Along with that, since it's pre-revenue, as I mentioned earlier, if they have a compelling barrier to entry, and along with that, let's say if they have a letter of intent, a few letter of intents from possible customers or clients, that adds on the credibility to the entire pitch deck as such. Along with that, if they have any significant endorsements from any of the advisors or leaders in the sectoral industry, that goes a long way. Along with that, I would suggest that while they are looking at arranging for this seed funding or reaching out to the investors, they should ensure that their network is already in place for the investors, and they are keeping a track of all the metrics from the point they start off with till the point they reach to a level wherein they have to present it to the investors. For example, the investors would like to know that right from the start till the point they have reached out to them, or while the negotiations are going on, whether how has their CAC moved, whether it has gone down, whether they have experimented with all the possible modes of marketing, whether they have kept a track of all the metrics, the average revenue per user, or the cost of acquiring a customer has significantly gone down. Have they brought down the gestation time or the time of closure of a particular transaction from n number of days to a smaller days? So all these metrics need to be kept in place.
In place. Okay, great, great
And
tips and insights for a
beyond
founder.
that, I think they just need to be ready with their deck and with all these things in that.
Great. Moving on, Ojasvi, the next question states that at what stage should we start looking out for external funding for an FMCG brand? Should we keep the business bootstrapped till little traction is made, or till the time business has gained little momentum?
Okay, good question with regards to the FMCG segment as such, because as against any of the other segments, FMCG is something which is a lot of competition in between. There are a lot of meaty products. It is easier to roll out a copy or an imitation of a similar product out there in the market, and anybody who has larger or deep pockets would be in a position to easily roll out a similar product. So, on a personal level, I would suggest that it is always better to ensure that while you're moving, going in for the marketing of an FMCG brand, if you can ensure organic growth and reach out to a level wherein you're positive on a unit matrix level, that would relieve you a lot of pressure, from the back of your mind as such. It is always better to negotiate from a position of strength. That is what we tell all our incubatees and all our fellow startups as such. Once you are unit positive on you're positive on unit matrix level, you would know that all that you need is to grow. You do not need any sustenance money as such. At that point of time, reaching out to the investors would give them a fear, a feeling of, with a fear of missing out, that if they do not ride on this particular opportunity, they might miss out. But if you go or raise funds or reach out to the investors before you are positive on unit matrix level, or you are not cash flow break even, the investors might evaluate that you are seeking funds just to sustain the business, and the growth is still not in the trajectory. So my personal opinion is that if you're looking at an FMCG brand, gain a little traction, get to a level when you're positive on unit matrix level, and then seek out funding. What it would give you, an additional benefit that it would give you is that if you are going in at an earlier level when you are not unit matrix positive, this might fetch a very low multiple of revenue. But when you go post that particular stage, when you see you're bootstrapped and made a little traction, the revenue multiple that you would fetch in terms of valuations would be a little higher. Make sure that you have optimized your CAC, optimize your cost of acquiring a customer, because when an investor is putting in money into your venture, he would not want to spend that money which you utilize in experimenting it over different social media or any of the other campaigns, and still not have optimized. So for every dollar that an investor wants to spend, he wants to see an exponential return and not just a proportional one. That's why it is very important that you break even or get a little traction before you get onto that particular platform,
Then, sure.
and just make sure that all the channels have been exhausted in terms of marketing.
Okay. The next question, Ojasvi, what would be your advice for a startup that has already given up 60% equity to early stage investors? Just for a little bit of context, they say that we have earned $4.3 million in revenue, $1.4 million in equity and debt funds combined. So, but they worry that our low base for the founding team might be a major concern for international institutional VCs. Do you think there could be VCs who would still like, to move ahead?
Absolutely, there are VCs who look at this as a proposition, but you know, uh, having given up 60% of the equity doesn't leave too much on the table for the VCs to exit at a later point of time. The only options that they're left with is possible high grade IPOs or any of the other ones. But having said that, it is more important for the promoters to convince the incoming VCs or the investors that even though they have given up 60%, they have not lost interest in the business.
Okay.
They have to make sure that they ensure the investors that they are there for a longer term, make sure that they decouple the management from the promoters as such, and tell them convincingly that whether the equity dilution happens or not, the management would professionally keep on continuing the business as such. And from a legal standpoint or from a clause standpoint, there are different clauses like clawback and the others, which can be negotiated with the existing investors, wherein upon reaching specific benchmarks, they can always claw back certain equity back to the promoters or back into the organization, thereby giving a little bit leeway for further investors to come in. New investors also understand, old investors also understand that in order to grow, there might be further capital required. So, in case there is a requirement for a clawback, I don't think there would be any apprehension or anything from the earlier investors if reasonable terms of exit or reasonable terms of clawback are presented. The other better option is to raise funds from the same investors from whom you've raised
Already
diluted
in
60%
stage.
of the equity from, because since they hold the majority of the holdings, it is in their best interest to protect the rest of the capital as such. And along with that, in case if there could be a structure wherein there are reasonable incentives for the founders which are incorporated into the entity, the VCs, the new incoming VCs, would take it in a very positive light. So that even if the equity incentives are not there, there are reasonable other incentives in terms of perks or in terms of salary, which may keep the founding team or the higher management team intact and play for a longer term. So I think there are multiple options, but yes, having said that, 60% is too much of dilution if you're looking to raise a further round.
Thank you so much, Ojasvi, for your time, and thank you for answering these queries for our members. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.